All right, let's talk about Greg Rousseau because the Bills picked up his fifth-year option, which I believe is a little over 13 million this for this year. That shows to me, and I'll let you guys go first. That shows to me that they, in the way Brandon Beane said it in his presser when it was asked last, when they did it, he was like, "Yeah, of course we did. Why wouldn't we?" Now I know 13 million for an edge rusher in this day and age, which is basically they're warranting a top 10 edge defender is warranting quarterback esque type money, big contracts. Obviously not 40, 50, 60 million, but they're going to be the highest paid. If you get a stud, he's going to be the highest paid player in your defense. How that's just how it works right now. Um, but picking up his option as quickly as they did kind of leads me down the road that they're going to give him an extension. And Papa Ron, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts? Do you think that he'll get an extension, and do you think that the Bills should give him an extension?
Yes and yes. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that there's three guys on this defensive line that can stay. Solomon, Oliver, and Russo is one of them. And part of it is because I do feel like he is a good. I mean, he is a good player, right? I mean, he's one of the better run defenders in the league at that position. The pressures were there, but you have so many other issues on this defensive line that he's one of those guys that just leave him there, leave him alone. Let's focus on this other side. I think if you can go out and you can get somebody who's dominant on the other side, it's going to make things so much easier for Rousseau. And then maybe he does get 10, 11 sacks a season at that. Maybe this is a pipe dream. I don't know. Maybe it's another conversation of the day. But if we can get a Max Crosby or Miles Garrett on that other side, it would do wonders for Rousseau. And I think you would see more of those pressures becoming sacks. I just, to me, he's not the problem necessarily. I know we had a terrible game against the Chiefs in that title game. Most of the defense did, in my opinion, especially the defensive line. But he's not the problem. So it's kind of one of those things where, you look at the big issue, what's causing the majority of the problem, and that's what you're going to look at, and he's just not it. And so I think the Bills do extend him, and I think they should. What that money
Scott,
looks like, I have no clue.
Scott, what do you think, man?
I don't know if they do. I agree that he's not the problem, but I also don't know if he's a big part of the solution. He disappears at times. And what do you have? 8 sacks this season, and 3 of them were in week 1 against the Cardinals. And it was like awesome. Like, this is the guy. And
Yeah.
then it was where'd he go? I don't remember him making a ton of like big sacks and big moments. He's not necessarily a dominant pass rusher, a la Von Miller, or Miles Garrett, and Max Crosby. But we knew that when we drafted him. A lot of his sacks in Miami actually came when he played on the inside, and they'd put him in there on third down, but the quarterback would just kind of like step up into him, and there he was. He's great against the run. Like, I agree with that, but so was Shaq Lawson. I'm not saying he's Shaq Lawson, but like Shaq Lawson was also good against the run. We paid him $2 million. We're in one of those spots where I don't think they're going to give him an extension this offseason because I think they have higher priorities, like some of the guys we talked about earlier. And I think they want to see more from him. And if we get that more from him next year, then that number probably gets higher than we're comfortable going because some team like the Raiders or the Titans or the Jaguars will give him $18 million a year to go there and, try to take it to the next level. And maybe he will. And if he has a year like he has the years past, then it kind of justifies not extending him. And it's okay, yeah, this is his ceiling. We're not going to give a guy 13, 14, 15, $16 million to be a really good run defender and an average pass rusher. So I feel like he might be one of those guys that plays out his rookie deal and then goes somewhere else. He'll get a big contract somewhere, I think, because he has the potential. I just don't know if it's here.
Yeah, when I think of Greg Rousseau, I think of Tremaine Edmonds. Extremely young, very raw coming out of the draft. Like, felt like he was just this physical specimen that was going to be able to be molded over time into this elite pass rusher. The wingspan, the run defense has always been there. I think a lot of stuff was technique coming out of college, coming out of Miami. I think a lot of it was what's his technique. Like, it seems like for a guy with such long arms and as tall as he is, he kind of gets pushed around a little bit. I just he's going to make 13 plus mil this year on his 5th year deal, right? And I just or his 5th year option. if he goes out there, two things could happen. He's going to go out there and he's going to be Greg Rousseau, and this is Greg Rousseau's ceiling, right? He's going to get 8.5 sacks. He's going to be really good against the run. He's not going to be a huge difference maker, or as Bean likes to call these guys, game wreckers, right? He's not. And then you could probably bring him back, right? You probably bring him back on a 3 or 4 year deal, and he'd be a rotational piece with AJ Epinesa and whoever else. Or he's going to go out there and have 14 sacks. He's going to be a Pro Bowler. He's going to look amazing, and he's going to price himself out of Buffalo. He's going to have the Tremaine Edmonds syndrome all over again, where the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to give him $24 million a year, which right now, Spot Track, take it for what it's worth, has him at $23 million a year as market value. So my question to both of you guys is, what are you willing to pay Greg Rousseau if he has the same year he has? Say he gets to double digits and gets to 10 sacks, but everything else kind of stays the same. We see him kind of fluctuate throughout the season. He has some good moments here and there. Hopefully has a better postseason. What kind of a contract do you think he deserves? Because, like we talked about, defensive ends are they're gonna warrant a ton of money. Slightly above average defensive ends, I feel like you see these guys sign in the offseason that are on their 9th team in 9 years, and they're getting $14 million, $15 million because they had a one good year 3 years ago. Like, I don't know. He's not Myles Garrett. He's not Max Crosby. He's not TJ Watt. He's not Trey Hendrickson. So what's he worth to you guys? Like, what's a contract to bring back Greg Rousseau next season?
23 million's a lot.
that's what's in Spot Rack's been up. Then they're kind of all over the place, but
yeah,
there's defensive ends out there making more than 23 million, but they're the guys that I mentioned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 23 is like right around. Max Crosby actually makes 23 million. Josh Hines Allen makes 28 million. Yeah, depends. If he has a year like a Greg Rousseau year, like you said, 8 sacks, good against the run, not a ton of splash plays, just like a solid defensive end, I feel like 15 million maybe ceiling wise, but he's going to want more than that on the open market, which is why I probably don't think they bring him back, because some team will give him a lot more than that, as we saw with some of the other numbers. And then at that point, you draft a guy and just kind of go at it again and get 4-5 more years of a rookie contract. I feel like that's probably the better answer.
I think a lot of this depends on if Brandon Beane steps up to the plate and tries to take a swing. I think a lot of what happens with Greg Rousseau is, and that might be part of why he doesn't. We don't know that. But if he goes and tries to get a Max Crosby or Myles Garrett and one of these guys, maybe that's the signal right there, because you obviously can't pay 2 guys, but maybe that's the sign right there. And maybe that brings a better version of Greg Rousseau out. I don't know. I'm not paying this guy more than $15 to $16 million a year. I think his rookie deal and his 5th-year option for 13, I don't know the exact number. I know it's a little north of 13 million for 8.5 sacks. Like, I feel like that's AJ Epinesa type stuff. Now, I understand. I'm not saying that Rousseau is AJ Epinesa. I'm just saying, like, they went out and they paid AJ to get 6.5 sacks, right? And be a rotational guy. Are we paying Groot $15 million for 8.5 sacks, 9 sacks, and really good against the run? Like, does that make sense? Like, long term? Ron, what do you think?
I think 15 would be fair. Ideally, you can get him on maybe a year or 2 extension or an incentive laden deal. Say, look, you go out next year, you ball out, you get us 14 sacks. Then we'll extend you, the 3 or 4 year deal that you're looking for. Because what I don't want to happen is for him to go out this coming season and have a huge year, and then we can't bring him back because then we can't afford it. I
Right.
don't want that to happen because sure, we can go and draft a guy, but we've been drafting guys and it's not working. And he's probably honestly the best of any defensive end that we've drafted over in McBean's time. So I worry about not trying to keep him at least for extend him maybe for a year or 2 am almost like a prove it couple of seasons, and then if he does ball out, then reward him for that. Because yeah, like I said, there's been a rotating door of defensive ends, and I don't like the rotation. We talked about that earlier. It drives me nuts. I think your best four guys need to be out there majority of the time. Uh, and if that's the case, he probably is a double-digit sack guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he gets more snaps, he's potentially. I've said it for a long time. Like a lot of people dog AJ Epinesa. I just feel like he's never been put in a position to be successful. I'm not saying AJ Epinesa is better than Greg Rousseau. I'm not here to say that. That's not what I'm saying. I used this analogy back in September. I was on a live show with Dan Fates from Buffalo Plus, and I said Greg Rousseau is the Gabe Davis of the Bills defense.
I
There's
said that
times
about
when
Epinesa.
you're like, holy shit, like the Arizona game. And then there's times when you're like, where is Greg Rousseau? Like, why is the Chiefs game? And I'm going to go on a rant for him. The Chiefs game. How many times was Greg Rousseau on the ground? Bro, you have a 96-inch wingspan. Nobody should be touching you off of your get off when the ball is snapped. Like you should be able to push these guys around. And we saw it this year when he was able to be just physically dynamic against opposing offensive linemen. And then there was times when we would play teams with an average to below average offensive line, and you're thinking, okay, Rousseau's going to eat, and he just didn't. Now, say what you want, if it's the rotation, if it was they weren't lining him up wherever, Vaughn's not doing shit, AJ's not doing shit, so he's getting double teamed, whatever it is. But I feel like, and this is the final on this, I feel like you ride out this season. And if he has a dynamic season where he goes bananas and he prices himself out of Buffalo, it happens. That's what they did with Tremaine Edmonds. They let him play out his fifth year, and what did he do? He went bananas. He gave us all the splash plays that we were waiting for. He gave us the interceptions and the All-Pro and all that stuff. So it sucks because we want these guys to be successful, and I'm sure Bean wants all his guys, especially first rounders, because the track record is not looking super great right now on first rounders. I'm sure he wants him to be successful, and I'm sure he wants him to go out there and have 15 sacks. But if he does, we can't bring him back. So it's like we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. So I don't know. Anything else you guys want to add on that? We're just about out of time. We're going to get out of here pretty soon. Anything else you guys wanted to say before we go?
Yeah, I was going to say, Rousseau, he played 71% of the snaps last season, and that's with a 0 against the Patriots because he was active but didn't play, and then only 41 against the Jets in Week 17. So it's like it's not like he's not getting snaps. Like 71%, like you look at guys right around him, Cameron Hayward, DeForest Buckner just above him, Leonard Williams just below him, Neil Henner just below him. Like he's getting a lot of snaps. Like it's not like he's playing 50%. Like he's getting the snaps, doesn't have crazy production. Like he's right in the range of like all the other top guys except for Max Crosby, who just doesn't leave the field. Like he's right in there with everybody else.
I think the Chiefs game turned a lot of people off because his comments didn't help his stance at all when he came out and said they were running stuff we had no idea.
Never seen it before. Yeah.
So I don't really think that helps his cause. But again, that's not just on him. That's on McDermott and Babich and stuff like that. So